This war has no moral justification, but that's not the only reason why we're going to lose it. Because sometimes the bad guys do fight and win a war. We're going to lose it because we're stupid. We're going to lose it because we didn't plan right. We're going to lose it because we're going to run out of ammunition and the Iranians aren't. We're going to lose this because the Iranian missiles are going to be striking targets throughout the Middle East and there will be no defense against it. We're going to lose it because everybody who thought the United States was a superpower that could defend them is going to wake up and realize the United States is a liar and can't defend anybody. Even the Israelis are going to realize this sooner rather than later, as their precious Haifa, Tel Aviv, gets turned into the modern incarnation of Gaza, leveled by the Iranians as punishment for what they've done to Iran.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode on TMJ's Political Current podcast. Over the past week, the US and Israel have dramatically escalated their war on Iran, a war that started with the targeting of a girls' school that killed 180 young school children, has escalated ever since, with the most recent being airstrikes on Iranian oil storage facilities. Now, officials in Washington are already saying that the US and Israel are winning and that Iran's capabilities have been destroyed. But military analysts, including my guest today, Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector and former US Marine Corps intelligence officer, says that's an absolute and complete lie. He's going to help me break down exactly what's happening behind the scenes militarily, strategically, and economically, and why the victory narrative that the US and Israel are already peddling couldn't be further from the truth. Mr. Ritter, thank you again for joining us on TMJ News. It's wonderful to have you on. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, and I actually want to start off with a question I know that many Americans have right now, and frankly, it's one that's very reminiscent of the Vietnam War, when the American government was convincing its people that, everything is great, we are doing fantastic, we're winning. But, little did Americans know that actually things were not going great, and they weren't going great at all. With the war on Iran now, we're seeing similar rhetoric coming out from American leadership, specifically Trump really saying we are doing amazing, the American military is performing fantastically, and we are winning. Would you say Trump's words right now are any reflection of what's happening on the ground, or are we looking at another incoming monumental mess?
Well, it's both, to be honest. Let's just reflect on the harsh truth about what's happening. The United States military is one of the most lethal militaries in the world. We have some of the most capable military equipment operated by some of the most proficient military professionals, and we are inflicting huge damage on Iran. This isn't child's play here. This is nation-ending damage. Cruel damage, nothing to do with military objectives. This is literally verging on the edge of genocidal actions against the Iranian people. And so you can't dismiss that. You can be against the United States. You can be against what their military is doing, but don't for 1 second minimize the absolute horror that's being inflicted on Iran by the American and the Israeli militaries. These are two modern militaries, very capable and able to unleash unprecedented violence. So we have to respect that reality, because that's the reality the Iranian people are living in right now. And this underscores the absolute failure of the United States and Israel in what they're trying to achieve, because they thought they could break the back of the Iranian government and the Iranian people. They could break the spirit of the Iranian people. No understanding whatsoever of the reality of the Islamic Republic of Iran or the Iranian nation, the role that Islam plays amongst the faithful of Iran, who constitute the vast majority of the nation. To assassinate the supreme leader is indicative of just how ignorant the planners of this conflict were, in the belief that an Islamic Republic, again, I'm not Islamic and I'm not Muslim, so forgive me if I say things that insult people I don't mean to. I respect your faith, and I respect people who adhere to the faith. And therefore, I find it shocking that anybody would believe that the murder of a human being, because Ali Khamenei at the end of the day was a human being, would somehow shake the faith of the nation. No, because he functioned as the supreme leader, Velayat Ifaki. It just shows an ignorance of Islam. It shows an ignorance of faith. It shows an ignorance of Iran to believe that by murdering one man, you would somehow get them to abandon their faith. It also shows an ignorance of Iran as a nation. It is an Islamic republic, which means it's a constitutional republic. And the idea that the supreme leader was somehow this singularity, this dictatorship of one, and if you kill it, everything goes away. What we're seeing is, no, the Constitution kicks in. We saw the formation of a 3-person council, the president, the head of the judiciary, and somebody appointed, a senior Ayatollah appointed by the Guardian Council, who, by the Constitution, governs in the role of supreme leader until a new supreme leader is picked by the Assembly of Experts as required by the Iranian Constitution. So the notion that by bombing Iran, by blowing things up, that we could, A, shake the faith of the Iranian people in their religion, and B, that the Iranian Constitution, which has been in place for 47 years, would suddenly go away, that we didn't even understand that it existed. I mean, that's the amazing part of this. We're shocked. The planners are shocked that where's this resilience coming from? You might want to study your enemy before you go to war against them. I mean, I come from a background. Where are the people in uniform saying, no, this is illegal? No, these targets shouldn't be bombed. No, what are we doing? And where are the American people? We should be in the streets screaming. Oh, we'll come to the streets sooner or later when the price of gas goes through the roof and suddenly we're like, oh my God, this hurt. And suddenly we'll wake up and say, you shouldn't have done this, but not for the reasons I'm citing. Because American people collectively aren't shedding tears for the Iranian people. American people collectively seem to be very okay with the fact that we're murdering thousands of Iranians, that we're destroying centuries of culture. I mean, these targets being hit aren't just, the empty buildings of governance, but we're blowing up culturally important facilities. We're destroying, millennia of history, because we have no respect for anything, let alone human life. We're going to lose this war, and we should lose this war. When I say we, the United States and Israel, this is not a war worth fighting. This is not a war for any just outcome. This is a murderous, illegal war of aggression, the greatest war crime in history. Iran did nothing wrong. Iran did everything right. And it's the war criminals that reside in Israel and the United States that have brought this war to the world. And I think that the world is going to wake up one morning sometime soon and realize that there is a price to pay for sitting back and doing nothing while evil moves forward with its horrible plans.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the US essentially is not going to win this war. Many are saying, obviously, that this is a war of attrition. Iran is wearing down American resources. Some estimates had been saying that the US will run out of missiles and missile interceptors within a week to 10 days. Some have put that at, a little bit longer, possibly weeks. Obviously, we know Pete Hegseth has, come out and denied this, saying, no, we have, and I quote, no shortage of munitions. But military analysts are really questioning that and whether it's true and whether the US is prepared and able to, at this point, carry this on for several weeks and potentially into months. Is this really the case? And if it is the case that the US is eventually, sooner or later, going to run out, what will happen once that happens?
This is actually one of the easiest questions to answer, because the United States doesn't have, when it comes to military production, a classified defense budget. We have budgeted for the acquisition of various classes of missiles that can be used to intercept ballistic missiles. We know how much money Congress has allocated to the various defense contractors, and we know how many munitions have been purchased. We also know how many have been sold to various client states around the world and how many have been retained by the United States in either operational duty or in stockpile. These are knowns. So now we compare and contrast the knowns with other somewhat knowns, because now this is where the numbers get dicey. Just how many interceptors were fired by Israel during Operation True Promise 1, True Promise 2, and True Promise 3? And the answer is a whole bunch. And how many were fired by the United States during this period of time? And the answer is a whole bunch. But they won't give us the exact numbers, because the moment you give us those numbers, reality kicks in, because we know how many were built. And we know how many we're continuing to build, and we know that there hasn't been a major allocation of resources to expand the defense industrial base to the extent that it can rapidly overcome the deficit. We're running out of missiles. And at the current expenditure rate, we're going to run out of missiles really soon, sooner than people think in terms of certain classes of missiles. For instance, the THAAD missile, very expensive to build, very expensive. We're just blowing through them like you wouldn't believe. The good news with THAAD is that the Iranians have destroyed most of the THAAD acquisition radars, which means that the THAAD can't be shot. So maybe whatever THAADs we haven't shot won't get fired because we can't fire them because we don't have the radars. Then we can deceive ourselves into thinking that we have capability that we do not. I mean, the reason why Pete Hegseth is lying to the American public right now is because Pete Hegseth allowed the United States to go to war when everybody planning this war said, we have an ammunition problem. I mean, this was known right up front that if we don't crush the Iranian government quickly and get them overthrown, two things are going to happen. They're going to keep firing missiles because they will not run out of missiles. And we're going to run out of interceptors, which means that eventually they're going to be firing missiles and we have nothing to defend against. And that's the direction we're heading right now. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have been deceiving themselves about, the ramifications to Iran of us blowing up empty buildings, because that's all we're blowing up. That's the other point that needs to be made here. We're blowing up a lot of stuff in Iran, but it's empty. The Iranian government is in survival mode. They're seeking to survive a war that they've been preparing for 20 years, and they are dispersed. We may get lucky and get one here, one there, one here, and one there, but they have, they have duplication built in. They're resilient, and we may get lucky and get some of them, but we're not going to get all of them. They've been spending 20 years going underground. They've broken their country into 12 autonomous military districts that are designed to function in a self-sufficient way, with no need for central direction. This was all known. I mean, I knew it, and I would imagine that there's some people at the CIA whose job was to know this. There was people at the Defense Intelligence Agency whose job was to know this. But the United States has allowed our intelligence system to become politicized. The job of an intelligence officer is to tell his or her boss not what they want to hear, but what the facts are. And then that boss has to take those facts and make decisions, informed decisions. They may make decisions that the intelligence officer disagrees with. It's okay. I'm not a decision maker. My job is just simply to tell you what the truth is. But what's happened now is that intelligence officers aren't allowed to tell the truth. They collect the data, and then their mid-level management says, well, I want to get promoted in the next promotion cycle. And I know that the boss has told my boss that we need to prove that this, that, and the other thing is happening. And so they massage the data. Anybody who wants to get promoted doesn't tell the truth. They massage the data. They lie to themselves. They leave little cutouts and caveats. They have special language they can use to say, well, we didn't say it was 100%. We said that there maybe, might, maybe not, blah, blah, whatever. They could blow through. They're lying. The Iranians are not evil. Their government is not evil. It's a government maybe we don't understand because we're ignorant. They're not pursuing nuclear weapons. They are trying to live in peaceful harmony with their neighbors and the world. And we made a decision together with Israel to eradicate them, to murder them, to slaughter them. So this war has no moral justification. But that's not the only reason why we're going to lose it, because sometimes the bad guys do fight and win a war. We're going to lose it because we're stupid. We're going to lose it because we didn't plan right. We're going to lose it because we're going to run out of ammunition and the Iranians aren't. We're going to lose this because the Iranian missiles are going to be striking targets throughout the Middle East and there will be no defense against it. We're going to lose it because everybody who thought the United States was a superpower that could defend them is going to wake up and realize the United States is a liar and can't defend anybody. Even the Israelis are going to realize this sooner rather than later, as their precious Haifa and Tel Aviv gets turned into the modern incarnation of Gaza, leveled by the Iranians as punishment for what they've done to Iran. We're going to lose this war because we don't have the ability to defend ourselves.
And, in terms of, just before I get to the next question, but you were mentioning moral justification. It's true, there's absolutely no moral justification, but it's really comical to see American leadership try to create that. And we've seen astonishing claims coming out recently, really to justify whatever moral justification there is. And, we've seen Trump say something as crazy as, Iranians chop kids' heads off or they cut women in half. I mean, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but even the American public is just like, even we know that's not true. Or there was, I forget which official it was, but, saying just openly saying the quiet part out loud that we should take Iran's oil because the terrorists don't deserve to have control of it. So it's almost as if there's a desperation to create this moral justification. And I'm not sure if the American public is seeing through it, but I certainly hope they are. My next question, though, when you were talking about capabilities, I've seen some mainstream reports in the past week of U.S. strikes having significantly diminished Iran's immediate ability to launch large-scale retaliatory strikes. And this is interesting because Trump said that their missiles are gone, their missile launchers are gone, their capabilities are gone. And it's interesting because the same evening there was an NBC Live broadcast that actually showed live an Iranian missile penetrating through the Iron Dome and hitting Tel Aviv. So this is happening as the U.S. is claiming Iran's capabilities are gone. So what is the reality of how much of an impact U.S. strikes have actually had on Iran's ability to respond? Has it diminished it, and to what degree?
You might remember, I mean, maybe not because I'm going to age myself. I always get in trouble. I used to speak at colleges, and if I spoke to a college in 1998, I would say, now remember back to the Gulf War, Desert Storm. And they'd go, oh yeah, I was in middle school then. I can remember that a little bit. But now when I say, now think back to the Gulf War, they're like, no, sorry, dude.
Yeah,
That was
that would be me.
And then if I say, you might remember, the American invasion of Iraq in 2003, it used to be people go, oh yeah, no, but now they're like, no, no, I wasn't even born then. But there was a guy we mocked, the Minister of Information. I called him Baghdad Bob, and Baghdad Bob would get up there and give his little thing. Everything's good. We're holding on. We're doing well. And there was a report, that the American tanks had broken through. There are no American tanks. And while he's speaking on the other side of the river, American tanks were driving by, and you're just like, dude, do yourself a favor, zip the lip and go. Because, this is Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are the modern day equivalent of Baghdad Bob. They're liars, straight up liars, spewing propaganda, no facts to back them up. I mean, Hegseth he's juiced up on something. I mean, this, yeah, okay, great, 315 pounds. Pete, good job. But that has nothing to do with your job as a defense secretary. He's not a secretary of war legally. And at some point in time, you've got to remove the caffeine and testosterone from that which generates your vocabulary and engage the brain. You can't just sit there and give us, these words that are meant to sound, we are the most lethal oriented fighting force on the earth. We deliver lethality with bestiality, with and it's like, dude, shut up, because it's not true. I mean, you're just murdering people. I mean, you're just bragging about murdering people, and you're not accomplishing that which you want, because you don't even understand what you're trying to accomplish. Again, Pete Hegseth is what happens when you lie to stupid people. When you lie to stupid people, they believe the lie, and then they start repeating the lie and magnifying the lie. Hegseth wouldn't know the truth and hit him in the face, and it's hitting him in the face right now, because every time he opens his mouth, he's proven wrong. I mean, yes, of course, Pete, we're blowing up empty buildings. Go give yourself a medal. Hand medals out to everybody if that makes you happy. But we're not winning the war. And again, we don't have any adult leadership in Washington, D.C. We have this nation that's literally functioning outside of the rule of law. It doesn't function constitutionally. I mean, I've never been more embarrassed to be an American than today, to look at how my country functions, because the Constitution is meaningless. You can do whatever you want. We don't care. And the president himself has said, I'm a dictator. I don't believe in law. I don't believe in the rule of law. I believe in my own individual morality. So the United States functions as a illegitimate dictatorship that's gone insane. I'm not advocating for violence, but this has to stop. And only the American people can stop it. I mean, that's the sad truth. Only we can stop it. And we're asleep at the wheel. No, why are we in the streets right now? Our president murdered 170 school children, and now he's blaming the Iranians for that.
Yeah,
and the
that's
American
wild.
people are okay with this. We're silent. We're doing nothing. It's sickening.
And, another thing, tying into what you just mentioned, we do hear as well that Israel is heavily censoring what's actually truly unfolding there in terms of the effect of Iranian strikes. Even journalists on air have admitted, I think probably mistakenly, that Israel is not allowing them to even show with a camera the extent of the damage, including their own civilians. Even their own civilians have gotten arrested for attempting to, take videos and share online. But do we know how bad Israel has been getting hit? And one other, thing that many have been saying is, could it be potentially that Netanyahu, his most recent statement saying we have a surprise for Iran, and many are tying that to the potential use of nukes? Does that have anything to do with whether Israel is actually getting hit hard and they're just not admitting it?
Look, before this war started, there was unsourced stories that Israel had put the United States on notice that if you're going to go to war against Iran, you have to finish this war. That Israel can absorb 700 hits, but after that, it gets too painful for Israel. And that seems to equate to reality. It's one of the reasons why the conflict was paused in January, because everybody realized that we're getting ready to start something we can't finish, and Iran's just going to pummel Israel. The Israelis committed to a course of action that was premised on the concept if you killed the supreme leader and you killed enough Iranian officials, the government would collapse and people would rise up in the streets. Well, people have risen up in the streets. Every night, millions of Iranians come out and demonstrate in the streets in support of the Iranian government. There is no opportunity at all for any popular uprising or anything like that. So Israel lost. Now the next fiction was that the United States would be able to suppress Iran's ballistic missile launch capability. I actually thought that might be a chance. I don't know, because I'm a military professional, and I went, wait a minute, we got some good resources here. We've got good intelligence collection. If I was doing this, I think I could come up with a plan. I think I could do it. I think I could actually do this because we're pretty good. Turns out we're pretty bad because we're not doing intelligence. We're doing guesswork. When we start off our campaign by blowing up a school and killing 170 children, remember, this wasn't done late in the war where the fog of war is there and uncertainty. This was done on day one. We're supposed to come in with the best targets we have, with the best intelligence we have. And we blew up a school and killed 170. And that's when I realized we lost this war. Because if there's going to be any chance of winning this war, we have to suppress Iran's ability to launch. There's no way I thought we were going to go to war against Iran and not and not be professional about it. It's shocking to me that, we could have done this with the lack of preparation, because all we're doing is blowing up empty buildings. That's it. We're not blowing up anything of note. And just look at the stupidity of this. We're actually publishing imagery bragging about blowing up helicopters and airplanes, and they're painted on the ground. Painted on the ground. I mean, this is embarrassing. This is humiliating. This is disgusting. We can't take ourselves seriously anymore, because at some point in time, the squadron intelligence officer, when he comes back and looks at the strike tape, has to send a message up saying, we're blowing up paintings. You're blowing up paint on the ground. Why are we putting my pilots at risk flying in there to blow up paint on the ground? We have to do a better job than this. You think the Iranians are actually going to leave all their high-value missile production equipment in this facility so that a week into the war, I can fly in and blow it up? Are you stupid? Now, if you told me we had a missile facility evacuation site, I'd say that might be worth putting bombs on. But if you're telling me we're just bombing things to bomb things, because that's what we're doing right now, we're just blowing up empty buildings. That's the stage of the war we're in. Meanwhile, the Iranians are striking everything that hurts. They're leveling Israel. Iran promised that they would turn Tel Aviv upside down. And that's what they're doing in a systemic way every night, neighborhood by neighborhood by neighborhood by neighborhood. And the more Israel does that, what do you think the Iranian targeting people are? Because the Iranians have morality. I know you saw that with their president coming out and trying to talk about, hey, we're sorry. They truly are sorry. They don't want to be doing this. They don't want to be striking their neighbors. They truly are sorry. But now you got the IRGC sitting there going, they blew up our oil storage. It's in the sewers and it's burning our city down. And you want me to sit here and be moral? No. Israel has to pay a price collectively. We can't be sending signals anymore. We have to be leveling the entire country the way we promised we would. And it's forcing the Iranians to cross over that moral, sort of a moral red line here, because the Iranians have always been very, very careful about targeting civilians and bringing harm to civilians. But at some point in time, the notion of collective punishment becomes a reality, especially when Israel is doing horrible things and it's going to get worse. They're going to start taking out desalination plants. They already did at Kashim Island. They're going to do their best to generate a humanitarian crisis, because that's the next step right now. We couldn't beat the government. So the goal now is to collapse society, to bring about, famine, to bring about, plagues, to bring about, just starvation.
Really their Gaza playbook, essentially.
Pardon?
Basically what they were doing in Gaza.
Yeah, but on a grander scale, genocide of the Iranian nation. And that's the next level that we're going. You can see it with the targeting right now. And at some point in time, military pilots just have to say, no, 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 no. It's not what we do. There is no legality in this. This is not proportional. And I'm just here to tell every pilot right now, because I've been there and done that. If you live, and I hope you do, someday you're going to be a 64-year-old man with bad knees, and you're paying the price of life. But this is the time when you're supposed to sit back and reflect on the value you've brought to the world. What have I done to make the world a better place? You look at your children. Did I raise them properly? Do they have kids of their own that passed on to the generations and all that? You guys are condemned to look in the mirror and forever know that you are murderous sons of bitches, that you didn't bring anything good to this world. All you did is bring death and destruction. And at the moment when you could have stood up and done something to stop it, you did nothing and you continued to go. And this will haunt you for the rest of your life. I promise you, I guarantee it. Every single one of you will be haunted by this. You think you're doing something good now, you're not. And if you don't do something to stop this, if you don't take action to say no, When you look in the mirror, you're just going to see evil staring back, and you're going to know that when you die, and you will die, we all die, you're going to hell, not heaven, if you do in fact believe in a God. I'm just being straight up honest with these people. This is going to haunt you forever. What you're doing today will haunt you forever because you are murdering people. You aren't doing the right thing here. You are murdering. And I say this because I know the Amaria shelter was bombed by us during the Desert Storm. We thought it was a legitimate target. I can honestly say that. I'm one of the people that signed off saying we've detected Mark 14 activity, which is a special encrypted radio phone linked only to the presidential communications. We believe that they were operating Scud command and control out of this facility. And we did the homework. We tried to do the homework, looking for anything that would suggest that it was anything other than that. But we made the decision to drop 2 bombs on that facility. And we ended up murdering over 400 women and children.
And,
it haunts you forever. That's the point I'm trying to make to these people. It haunts you forever. And unless you do something to make up for that, unless you try to stop a war and try to stop wars and try to prevent that scenario from happening again, you're just going to spend the rest of your life being confronted with the evil that you did and the fact that you did nothing to stop that evil.
And, speaking of stopping wars, one other conversation that we're seeing, and I'm curious to know if you think it's even a possibility, but talks of potential ground invasion by U.S. troops. And, interestingly, one clip that has gone very viral is Iran's foreign minister, Araghchi, saying how really Iran is waiting for them. Do you see that happening? I mean, it would be, even to me, with no military experience, nothing, just even thinking that a ground invasion could happen is a terrible idea, because you could make the argument that the US could have air superiority over Iran, but land superiority is something that even someone with no military experience knows will not go well whatsoever. And it would really be risking the lives of thousands of US troops. You're speaking about pilots and, whatnot. Are American troops ready to go into a war on the ground, knowing what the outcome of this could be for them?
No, the good news is we can't do it. I mean, it's just the good news. Pete Hegseth can sit there and, take his testosterone and, go lift weights and then come out and stare in the mirror at his chiseled Christian crusader cross-bearing chest and say, we can do this. But even the generals that lie to themselves will say, we can't do this. It will take hundreds of thousands of troops that we don't have. We literally don't have them. It would take logistical sustainability factors that we no longer possess. And it would take a geopolitical reality that has long since passed. We deployed 750,000 troops into the Gulf during Desert Storm. But we did so because the Iraqis didn't oppose our positioning of the troops. We landed at ports that were not under attack. We landed at airports that weren't under attack. We were able to assemble without any opposition and then move up to the battlefront and shape our forces without being. If we try to land anywhere, those airfields will be struck by Iranian drones and missiles. There's no place in the Middle East Iran can't strike, and they've proven that point. There's no port they can't shut down. And how do we get in? I mean, we'd have to go through the Strait of Hormuz. We'd be sunk. Or we have to land our troops, in Israel, move them to Jordan, and then assemble them in Western Iraq, build a logistics base in Western Iraq, which would be hit by Iranian missiles, and then seek to project power through Iraq while the Iraqi people were sitting there letting this happen? No. Saudi Arabia, we land in Western Saudi Arabia, on the same coast that Mecca Medina is. So the Saudis will never object to that. They've never once objected to hundreds of thousands of Americans landing on the soil of Mecca Medina. And then we're supposed to build up. And then what? We go through Kuwait into Iran. The Iraqis tried that once. You sort of punch into a vase and then you punch into this empty bag and then you get trapped, sucked in, and you die. And I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face, and I'll say it again, but because people need to understand, war doesn't just happen. It just doesn't just happen. It is an art. It is a science. You have to be prepared to do this. Now, today, we're not trained to do any of that. Nothing. We're going to pull the one unit that could do that, 82nd Airborne, light infantry, and we're going to send them against Iran. I don't mean to laugh, but I'm sorry, paratroopers, you ain't that good. You're really not that good. You can bench press 315 pounds, but you sure as hell can't fight the Iranians on the ground in Iran. They will wipe you out to a man because you've got no sustainability. Where's your heavy weapons? Where's your reinforcement? What happens when you parachute in? All you tough guys that bench press 315 pounds, because Pete Head says that's the motto we want. And you run out of ammunition. And now you're in the middle of Iran, out of ammunition, and the Iranians are coming out of the woodwork. You're going to die. Maybe they take you prisoner because they are, after all, humane. So they might take you prisoner. They might not, though, because you've been blowing up their homes, killing their mothers, killing their sisters, killing their brothers, killing their cousins. They might just shoot you on the spot. That's what will happen if we send ground forces in there. We have no chance whatsoever to defeat the Iranians at all. They've been preparing for this fight for 20 years. For 20 years, they've been preparing for this fight. So there will be no ground forces going in. That's just Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth snorting cocaine, smoking dope, or whatever, psychotropic drug they're taking to fantasize this war game that they're playing in their heads. We will not send ground troops into Iran because we can't.
Well, Mr. Ritter, thank you again for joining us on TMJ. It was wonderful to have you on, like always.
Well, you've got my blood pressure. We'll see. But thank you very much for having me. It's an important conversation that needs to be had.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.